We're diving into a tough story out of Japan today. It's February 2021 in Asahikawa. Think freezing, like -17 Celsius. A 14-year-old girl disappears. A month later, they find her body frozen in a park. Tragic on its own, but this case, it gets even more complicated. There were really serious allegations of bullying leading up to her death. Yeah, this one is heavy. We're going to try to understand everything surrounding this tragedy, especially the bullying and the investigations that followed. We'll break it down so it's clear, even if you don't know much about Japan, kind of like unpacking the evidence and questions. It's known as the Asahikawa Girl Middle School Bullying Freezing Death Incident.
Catchy name.
We're using reports and summaries compiled on Wikipedia, which draws on news articles and official findings. So to start, let's rewind to April 2019, when this young girl enrolled at Hokusei Middle School. Things went downhill fast.
What really stands out is how quickly the bullying started. It was almost immediate. Reports show she was targeted by several students, both boys and girls. And it wasn't just your typical teasing. It escalated fast and became really disturbing.
So what did this early bullying look like? One of the first things was online coercion. A male student, not even from her school, started messaging her online.
Line's huge in Japan, right? Like their WhatsApp.
Exactly. He was demanding naked videos, photos, that kind of thing. Not just asking, but really pushing her. Imagine that pressure as a young teenager.
Wow.
Awful. And tragically, she did send explicit images out of fear.
Oh, man.
And this is where it gets even worse. Those images, shared within middle school line groups, it didn't stop there. There was another incident where she was called out, forced to perform a sexual act. It's just horrific. This online stuff spilled over into real-life danger.
This early phase is textbook on how risky online stuff is for kids. Anonymity, pressure to fit in, stuff never really disappearing. It's a recipe for disaster. Those images spreading so easily, leading to more abuse in person. It shows how online and offline bullying can really combine to make things so much worse for the victim.
And it did escalate. June 22, 2019, she's surrounded by almost 10 students from Hokusei, her own school. This group, they threaten her, actually force her to jump into the Upetsu River.
Whoa.
The terror of that. Surrounded, threatened, forced into a river. It was so bad the police got involved. This was way beyond online harassment. This was direct physical endangerment.
That river incident, that should have been a huge red flag for the school and authorities, police involved. That's a clear sign this is dangerous, needs immediate intervention. It's worrying that it didn't trigger that response right away.
Absolutely. But here's where things get even more messed up. The police response and allegations of a cover-up. So the police arrive at the river, the group who forced her in. They tell the police she jumped, that it was a suicide attempt because of maternal abuse, basically abuse from her mother.
No way.
And the police, they initially believed this story. They prevented the girl's mother from even going with her to the hospital. Think about that. Your child is in distress, and you're kept away based on the word of the bullies.
That's so messed up. They just accepted that story without checking and keeping the mother away. Serious questions about how they handled that.
Thankfully, the police did eventually start to doubt. They noticed none of these so-called friends were checking on the victim. No concern at all. Seems suspicious. So they started looking at her line messages.
Ah, good old digital footprints.
What they found, the messages and images that hadn't been deleted, revealed the bullying. This led to an investigation by the Asahikawa Central Police Station Juvenile Division. They also confirmed there was no maternal abuse whatsoever. Finally, the mother could be with her daughter.
So it was the lack of contact from the friends that tipped them off. That's smart. And even though the kids tried to delete the line messages, resetting their phones, the police still got them. Digital forensics for the win. Even when you try to hide stuff, it can come back to bite you.
There were legal consequences. But many, including the family, felt they weren't enough for what she'd been through. The male student from the other school, the one who started the online threats and demands for images, he got a strict warning. He was treated as a juvenile delinquent under the child pornography prohibition law.
Juvenile delinquent? That sounds kind of light for what he did.
It's a term Japan uses for minors who commit offenses. It usually leads to guidance and intervention, not adult charges. Because he was under 14, it was for manufacturing child pornography. The others involved in the river incident were investigated for coercion, but because of insufficient evidence, they also only got strict warnings. Many people felt this wasn't justice.
Yeah, strict warnings feels like a slap on the wrist considering what that girl went through. I guess it's hard to prove coercion and get concrete responsibility in cases like this, especially with minors.
So after all that, the initial bullying, the river incident in June 2019, the victim moved away in September. Fresh start, right? But the trauma stuck with her. She developed PTSD.
Post-traumatic stress disorder.
Yeah. Severe anxiety disorder happens after traumatic events. For almost 2 years until she disappeared in February 2021, she was basically a recluse at home. Hospital stays, outpatient treatment, a young life destroyed by cruelty. The PTSD really shows just how deep and lasting the harm from bullying can be.
It's heartbreaking. Withdrawing from life, needing constant treatment, that paints a dark picture of how these early traumas can affect someone's whole life. The effects of bullying go way beyond the actual incidents.
Then things got even worse. February 13, 2021, brutally cold, Naga 17 Celsius. She leaves home, goes missing. Police search publicly. Sadly, March 23, they find her body in a park. Hypothermia. Likely died the day she disappeared.
And even in death, there were more screw-ups. The death certificate, the official record, it listed schizophrenia as a cause of death. She never had schizophrenia. Turns out, the Hokkaido Prefectural Police mistakenly told the doctor that, based on her medications for PTSD.
The family was, understandably, outraged. The certificate was eventually corrected, but it's shocking that such a huge mistake could happen.
It's awful. Misattributing a serious mental illness because they misinterpreted her medication. It's insensitive, adds more pain to a grieving family. Makes you wonder about communication between law enforcement and doctors in these situations.
What's also important is how little media coverage there was initially. For a while, it was mostly local Hokkaido news. Back in October 2019, a local magazine, Media Asahikawa, did link the earlier suicide attempt to bullying. But it wasn't until April 2021, about a month after her body was found, that it blew up nationally. That was because of a report by Bunshin Online, which featured the mother's story. That was the turning point.
It's interesting how it stayed local for so long. The info was out there, but it didn't grab national attention until that Bunshin Online report shows how powerful investigative journalism can be, bringing stories to light that might otherwise stay hidden.
Totally. Once that national story broke, there was outrage. The Asahikawa City Board of Education, the schools, flooded with over 300 complaints. Huge public pressure. So the city held a closed-door meeting and launched a third-party investigation.
Makes sense. That many complaints. They had to react. A third-party investigation was probably the best way to figure out what went down.
It even reached national politics. In the House of Councilors Budget Committee, they questioned why the school refused to let a lawyer be present when the parents were meeting with them. The Minister of Education, Koichi Hagiura, said parents need support in these situations. Having a lawyer isn't unusual, and schools should usually allow it.
Going all the way to Parliament. This was clearly a big deal, and the minister was right. Parents should have support in situations like this. A lawyer can make a huge difference.
Hirofumi Takimoto, the Director General of the Elementary and Secondary Education Bureau, also weighed in. He stressed how important it is for bullied students and their parents to know everything that happened. He mentioned the guidelines for investigating serious cases of bullying. Schools have a responsibility to be transparent, while also following privacy rules. Pretty strong message from the government about transparency.
It sounds like they knew things were messed up locally and wanted to set things straight. Following guidelines, respecting parents' right to information, it's about accountability.
On April 27, 2021, the Asahikawa City Board of Education officially called it a serious incident under the Act on Promotion of Measures to Prevent Bullying. Big step. Official acknowledgement of how bad it was. Then, October 2021, the new mayor, Hiroshi Ematsu, he reviewed everything and publicly said, yep, bullying happened. Before that, they danced around the word bullying, calling it a suspected case.
So they finally admitted it. That's huge. It had to happen, though. The public wasn't letting it go.
Yeah, right. The third-party committee released their interim report in March 2022. They confirmed 6 specific instances of bullying. The Asahikawa City Superintendent of Education apologized to the family. But the family's lawyers weren't satisfied. They pointed to survey results showing bullying within the school itself, not just outside like the report said.
Ah, so there was more to the story. The lawyers were right to push for that. Getting the full picture of the bullying is crucial.
The draft of the final report, given to the family in August 2022, was controversial. It didn't explicitly link her PTSD to the bullying. Said they hadn't interviewed her directly, so it'd be speculation. Also suggested she might have had depression before the bullying, which could have played a role in her death. But again, didn't connect it directly to the bullying. The family was understandably upset. The city even considered another investigation by a new committee, reporting directly to the mayor.
Yeah, I see why they'd be upset. Suggesting depression without a clear link to the bullying almost downplays how much that abuse would have affected her mental state. It's like shifting the blame to the victim.
The City Board of Education's official final report came out in September 2022. They identified specific bullying, but the report said that while her death was a suicide, potentially linked to depression, bullying, and isolation, the direct link between death and bullying was unclear. But they were harsh on the middle school. Didn't report the river incident as serious, criticized the Board of Education for not recognizing it as such either, called it a violation of law, blaming the negligence of successive City Board of Education organizations.
So on one hand, they acknowledged bullying but couldn't conclusively say it caused the suicide. That must have been frustrating for the family. But on the other hand, they slammed the school and board for their inaction. That's something at least. Shows a failure to protect her.
The family responded with a written opinion. They criticized the report for downplaying her suffering, calling the lack of a clear link an obvious avoidance of judgment. They weren't satisfied. So Mayor Imatsu announced a new reinvestigation. The city superintendent of education resigned, taking responsibility. And just this past June 2024, the reinvestigation committee concluded that, yes, the suicide was caused by the bullying.
Wow. So finally some real acknowledgement. That family fought so hard for the truth. That new conclusion has to mean a lot to them.
Throughout this whole thing, statements from school officials have been really damning. Relatives said the mother repeatedly asked the school to investigate in 2019, but they dismissed her concerns. They're good friends, that kind of thing. There are even allegations that a teacher told the bullies about the victim's confidential bullying consultation. Can you believe that?
That's unbelievable. A teacher betraying a student's trust like that, it's devastating. No wonder she felt like she couldn't turn to the school for help.
Even arranging a meeting for apology was a nightmare. No teachers were present, and they wouldn't let the family record it. What were they hiding? The vice principal allegedly told the mother that the school wasn't responsible for the spread of those images because it didn't happen on school grounds.
Seriously, that's a cop-out. They have a duty of care no matter where the bullying happens, especially when it affects a student so deeply. They completely failed to take responsibility.
And the principal's remarks? Awful. He suggested she had pre-existing suicidal tendencies from elementary school, said what happened at Hokusei wasn't bullying, denied any link between the forced sexual act and her death, trying to downplay everything.
It's disgusting. To say that about a dead child, especially after everything that came out, it shows a complete lack of understanding, empathy.
But the worst, maybe the most widely reported statement, was from the vice principal. He allegedly told the mother they prioritized the future of the 10 bullies over the victim. Asked her which was more important for Japan's future. He also allegedly dismissed the forced photos and videos as just a prank, even suggested the mother should see a doctor. The former principal, in an interview, downplayed the bullying, questioned the link to her death, said kids need to learn to overcome failures. And reportedly, the school kept telling the parents and the board that no bullying happened. Denial at every level.
Unbelievable. Prioritizing the bullies, calling it a prank. It's sickening. They completely laid that girl. This wasn't just incompetence, it was a total disregard for her well-being.
This case exposes so many problems. The Board of Education and the school failed to learn from a previous tragedy, the Asahikawa girls' high school gang rape case. They didn't act. Local media suggested that the initial lack of reporting by bigger outlets might have been because of the taboo around suicide, the minors involved, and maybe even a closed-off atmosphere in Asahikawa itself.
It makes you wonder how many cases get swept under the rug.
Then Mayor Nishikawa was also criticized for resigning to run for national office without addressing the issue. He abandoned his responsibility. Reports say that might have been why he lost the election. Adding to the mess, a citizens group leaked the unredacted 2022 report online, and someone requested criminal charges against the website operator.
It's like this case just kept getting more complex with more pain piling on. So much went wrong.
And the online harassment the victim and her family faced is just horrific. Defamation, false rumors on Twitter, now X. They had to sue a woman who wouldn't stop posting lies. She had to pay 1.65 million yen. Then there's the criminal complaint against a guy who pretended to be a classmate and posted awful stuff about her and her family. He got indicted. A family supporter even talked about the constant online harassment they still face. After losing their daughter, they have to deal with this.
It's heartbreaking. They're grieving, and people are attacking them online. Those legal actions are good, but the damage is done. The emotional toll of that harassment is huge.
And then there's the leaks. Her photos and info of people wrongly accused spread all over social media. Those falsely accused were harassed, got prank calls, their reputations were ruined. A YouTuber was even arrested for trying to confront someone he wrongly thought was involved. Several people sued and got compensation.
It shows how dangerous online mobs can be. Information spreads so fast, and people jump to conclusions without checking. The consequences for those innocent people are real. It's a cautionary tale. Think before you share. Don't be part of the problem.
So as we wrap up, what are the key takeaways from this awful case? First, unchecked bullying has devastating and long-lasting consequences. Second, the system can fail to address it. Third, getting truth and accountability is a long, hard fight. And lastly, online harassment and misinformation add another layer of pain. The family and the community have been through so much.
It's a lot to process.
This case shows how complex these issues are. We need to be vigilant against bullying online and offline. Be very careful about misinformation, which spreads like wildfire these days. This case, it really makes you think. What does it say about our responsibility to protect young people? How can we learn from this and prevent future tragedies? It's a wake-up call about our behavior, both online and off. We need to seek truth, understand the complexities, especially in tough situations like this.